Good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone. Let me begin with a simple question. What makes a leader worth following? In a world driven by metrics, milestones, and market shares, we often confuse leadership with authority, rank, or titles. But true leadership, inspirational leadership, is not about being in charge. It's about taking care of those in our charge. Sinek once said, "A leadership is not about being the best. It's about making everyone else better." That right there is the essence of servant leadership. Today, I want to talk about a kind of leadership that flips the script, a kind that doesn't scream for attention but listens, that doesn't demand loyalty but earns it, by putting people first. Because the greatest leaders don't stand above their people. They stand with them. They lift them. They lift them. They serve them. And in doing so, they create environments where trust, innovation, and growth can truly thrive. So let's dive into what it really means to lead with heart, with humility, and with purpose. Let's talk about servant leadership and how putting people first is the most powerful way to lead. Leadership is a responsibility, not a rank. This simple yet profound idea challenges the conventional perception of what it means to lead. Too often, leadership is associated with authority, with corner offices, titles on business cards, and the power to make decisions that impact others. But real leadership, the kind that inspires, empowers, and transforms, is not about the position you hold. It's about the responsibility you carry. Responsibility in leadership begins with the people you lead. It's about showing up for them, not just when it's convenient, but especially when it's not. When things go wrong, a true leader takes ownership. When things go right, a true leader gives credit to the team. This shift in mindset from personal gain to collective well-being is what separates someone who simply holds a rank from someone who truly leads. When we think about leadership as a rank, it creates a hierarchy where power and privilege are concentrated at the top. It becomes about control, compliance, and command. People follow because they have to, not because they want to. But when leadership is seen as a responsibility, it fosters a culture of service, support, and shared vision. People follow not out of fear, but out of trust and belief in their leader. The responsibility of leadership means putting others before yourself. It means creating an environment where people feel safe, valued, and heard. It means recognizing that the well-being of your team is not a side note, it's the foundation of everything. Great leaders understand that their job is not to be the smartest in the room, but to bring out the best in others. They listen more than they speak. They ask questions before giving orders. They create space for ideas, for growth, for failure, and for learning. Leadership as responsibility also means consistency. It's easy to be a good leader when everything is going well, but the real test comes during adversity. That's when people look to their leaders for direction, for calm, and for confidence. A responsible leader remains steady in the storm. They don't panic. They don't blame. They protect their team even if it costs them personally. This is not about being perfect, it's about being present, it's about being dependable when it matters most. This kind of leadership is not glamorous, it rarely gets the spotlight. In fact, much of it happens behind the scenes, in late-night conversations, quiet encouragement, unseen sacrifices. But the impact is deep and lasting. When people feel seen and supported by their leaders, they bring more of themselves to their work. They take initiative. They take ownership. They care, and not because they're told to, but because they feel connected to something greater than themselves. Sinek often says, the leaders who get the most out of their people are the leaders who care most about their people. That care is not about grand gestures or motivational speeches. It's about day-to-day actions. It's about remembering a team member's birthday, checking in when someone seems off, standing up for someone who isn't in the room. These things don't show up on a KPI report, but they are the glue that holds great teams together. When leadership is treated as a responsibility, it also becomes contagious. Others begin to model the same behavior. A culture of support and service begins to spread. Teams become more resilient, more collaborative, more human. People begin to lead from wherever they are, not because they have a title, but because they've seen what leadership really looks like. In this light, leadership becomes less about directing others and more about guiding them. Less about being in control and more about being in service. It's a quiet strength, not a loud authority. It's not about demanding respect. but earning it through integrity, empathy, and consistency. This is not the kind of leadership that seeks applause, but the kind that creates real impact. Best leaders serve so others can rise. This simple truth is at the heart of servant leadership, a philosophy that turns the traditional view of leadership on its head. Instead of seeing leadership as a way to gain power or elevate oneself, servant leaders see it as a calling to uplift those around them. Their primary goal is not personal success, but the success of the people they lead. They measure their impact not by how far they go, but by how far they help others go. Serving others doesn't mean being weak or passive. On the contrary, it requires strength, humility, and intentionality. It takes courage to put someone else's needs before your own, especially in a world that often glorifies individual achievement. But servant leaders understand that leadership is not about being the hero of the story. It's about helping others become the heroes of their own. They create environments where people feel empowered to grow, to contribute, and to shine. A leader who serves is deeply invested in the development of their team. They don't hoard knowledge or guard opportunities. They share them freely. They see potential in others even when those individuals may not see it in themselves. They encourage, mentor, and guide without overshadowing. They know that real influence doesn't come from showing how much you know. It comes from helping others discover what they're capable of. Selves. They don't just build teams, they build people. This kind of leadership requires a shift in priorities. It means asking different questions. How can I support you? Instead of what can you do for me? It means recognizing that success is not a solo climb to the top, but a shared journey where the leader walks beside their people, not ahead of them. When leaders serve, they create a ripple effect. People feel valued, they gain confidence, and they're more willing to take initiative, collaborate, and stretch beyond their limits. Servant leadership also means making space for others to lead. It's not about always having the final say or being the loudest voice in the room. It's about knowing when to step back and let others step forward. A leader who serves is not threatened by the success of others. They celebrate it. They don't see talent as competition. They see it as a resource to be nurtured. This mindset creates a culture of trust and respect where people are encouraged to contribute their unique strengths. The impact of servant leadership is not always immediate, but it's always meaningful. It's always meaningful. When people feel genuinely supported, they become more loyal, more creative, and more resilient. They're more likely to go the extra mile, not out of obligation, but out of a sense of belonging and purpose. A leader who serves builds a foundation of goodwill that strengthens teams in both good times and bad. They create not just followers, but future leaders. To serve others effectively, leaders must first understand them. That requires empathy, active listening, and a willingness to be present. It means paying attention not just to what people say, but to what they need. It's about noticing when someone is struggling and offering help without judgment. It's about recognizing hard work even when it doesn't result in visible outcomes. It's about building people up with words, actions, and consistent support. This kind of leadership isn't always glamorous. It may not earn headlines or applause, but it earns something far more valuable: trust. And when a leader has the trust of their team, everything changes. Communication improves. Morale rises. Challenges become opportunities to grow together. Servant leaders don't just lead teams, they cultivate communities where people feel safe to take risks, speak up, and strive for excellence. The best leaders understand that their role is not to be served, but to serve. They lead with humility, not ego. They focus on impact, not image. They know that leadership is not about how many people follow them, but how many people they've helped rise. They leave a legacy not of control, but of empowerment. And in doing so, they unlock the full potential of the people they serve. Trust and empathy are the foundation of lasting leadership. Without trust, leadership is fragile. Without empathy, leadership is hollow. The combination of these two values forms the bedrock upon which genuine, long-term influence is built. People do not follow titles. They follow those they believe in, leaders who make them feel safe, seen, and supported. When leaders operate from a place of trust and empathy, they don't just earn compliance, they inspire commitment. Trust begins with consistency. It's not built in grand gestures or big speeches, but in the small, everyday actions that show people they can rely on you. A leader who keeps their word, follows through on promises, and shows up during difficult times becomes someone others look to not because they have to, but because they want to. Trust is formed when words align with actions. It is strengthened when leaders admit mistakes instead of deflecting blame, when they take responsibility even when it's uncomfortable, and when they give credit where it is due. Empathy is the ability to understand and feel what others are going through, even if you haven't experienced it yourself. It's not about having all the answers, it's about being willing to listen. It's about making space for people to be human. Leaders who lead with empathy don't dismiss emotions as weakness. They recognize them as part of the human experience. They know that behind every role is a person, with challenges, dreams, doubts, and fears. When a leader takes time to understand someone's perspective, they build a bridge of connection that makes people feel valued. When people trust their leader and feel that their emotions and experiences are understood, they begin to open up. They share ideas more freely. They express concerns without fear. They ask for help when they need it. In that kind of environment, creativity flows, collaboration deepens, and team morale grows stronger. Trust and empathy don't just make people feel good, they make teams more effective. People are more likely to take ownership of their work when they feel psychologically safe. And that safety comes from knowing their leader genuinely cares. A leader who fosters trust does not micromanage, they empower. They believe in their people's ability to solve problems, make decisions, and take initiative. They give autonomy not because it's easy, but because it builds confidence. At the same time, they remain approachable and available. They don't disappear when things get hard. They stay close, not to control, but to support. That balance of freedom and presence creates a strong sense of accountability, because people don't want to let down a leader who believes in them. Empathy in leadership also means recognizing that everyone has different needs, and what works for one person may not work for another. It means adapting your approach, not to be agreeable, but to be effective. It's about leading the person, not just the role. It's about asking, how can I help you succeed? Instead of saying, this is what success looks like. This personalized support builds loyalty, because people remember how a leader made them feel, especially when they were going through something tough. Building trust and practicing empathy also means being willing to be vulnerable. Leaders are not expected to be perfect, but they are expected to be real. When a leader says, I don't know, or I need help, they don't lose credibility, they gain it. Because honesty invites honesty. Vulnerability invites connection. It signals to the team that it's okay to be human, that making mistakes is part of learning, and that support is not conditional on perfection. In cultures where trust and empathy are prioritized, conflict becomes healthier. Disagreements are approached with respect. Feedback is given constructively. Differences are viewed as strengths rather than threats. People feel safe enough to challenge ideas, not people, and innovation thrives because diverse perspectives are welcomed, not silenced. Leaders in these environments don't dominate conversations, they facilitate them. They listen not to reply, but to understand. They create circles, not pyramids. Leaders who build trust and show empathy plant seeds of loyalty and resilience. Teams led this way don't just perform well, they grow together. They stand by one another when challenges arise. They recover from setbacks more quickly because the emotional bonds are strong. This sense of connection cannot be forced. It must be earned, day by day, conversation by conversation. A conversation. It is slow, deliberate work, but it leads to something truly powerful, leadership that lasts.